All right. What's going on? Are we live? Are we live? Can you guys see us?
Hey everybody, what's going on?
I see some chat going on.
All right.
It's coming. How you doing, Della?
I'm doing good, man. It's been LightBox has been going on all week, so it's been inspiring, and then we've had our own things kind of going off this week, so it's been just a nonstop mile a minute, but going
I,
awesome, man.
yeah, what a coincidence, huh?
Yeah, everything hits it the same week.
What's good? What's good, everybody? Yeah, we're good. All right, so we're just gonna give it maybe like a minute so people are here. Get in here. We can just spitball some stuff. But basically, we're here to celebrate Lightbox.
Yep,
There's a lot going on. A lot of friends doing talks. We did Lightbox in person 2 years ago.
it was amazing
That was
that
cool.
first year.
Yeah, can you guys hear Dala too? Yeah, it's all good, right?
Yeah, can you hear me? Free sketch giveaway if you can hear me.
My
Just kidding.
mustache. Please can you-
Yeah, let me know if you can hear me, man.
All right. Like usually it takes a while for people to, I guess,
Filter
reply.
in.
But yeah, celebrating Lightbox. Like I said, we did in person a couple years ago, and now we're doing this online thing. We want to keep it going. Hopefully next year we'll be doing both, right? Like in person and online. That should
Hmm.
be fun.
Yeah,
So we're gonna be talking about something that we always get asked. I talk about it as much as I can because I know it's important for a lot of you, which is just portfolio in general. Like sometimes we do more of just a portfolio review. Um, we never, or at least I've never really did one specific to more about like what comes with it. What's what do you need to have for portfolio for interviews or what happens behind the scenes? What do we look for? What questions do we ask? Right?
yeah, and I think that's one of the things too that we talked about with this too is outside of just the normal portfolio review, giving a little bit of perspective on Raf and myself both in our career applying for jobs and then being on the hiring side, giving a little bit of insight from both point of views, the studios as well as the artist, and where that can help. I know that was something I never got a lot of feedback on, and not intentionally, but just coming up. I didn't know until later, and I think one another advantage with Raf and I is also we both worked on realistic to stylized projects at AAA studios to like smaller studios, so we have that kind of breadth of knowledge. Depending on where you want to go with it, because it's not always the same for everyone. It's just giving a little bit of the bigger insight on that kind of point of view, so it helps you as artists that you're starting on your journey or continue your journey.
Yeah. So I guess jumping in, let's talk about just like briefly like some of your background, though, so people have.
Yeah. Hey everyone, my name is Della Longfish. If you don't know, I'm currently the lead of the character concept art team at Santa Monica Studio, working on the God of War franchise. I work with Raf at the studio. Our studio is broken up on the concept side. For what I do is just a character side and then also environment side. So I strictly deal with characters. Um, and I've been at Santa Monica Studio since 2013, so just over 8 years now. It's been awesome. I think I started almost within the same month as Raf, so we kind of came on together, learning the ropes of the studio. Obviously, we both worked before. Prior to that, I was done at LucasArts 7 years before that. I got to work briefly at ILM. So I had a lot of different experience. My time at LucasArts was also doing new IP development, which is extremely fun, creative way for a concept artist. Um, One thing that comes with that, though, you do a lot of ideas and they don't all come to fruition. So even though I had a lot of work, there wasn't a lot of stuff I could show. So God of War is probably the biggest thing people know me for, even though I've been over 10 years in the industry.
Yep. Exactly. So can you see you talking, Dala, or you? I think you got a delay or something. All
Oh,
right.
I can,
No,
yeah,
we're
I
back.
can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
We're back. We're back. It was my thing. My thing was spinning. So sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. So like Dala said, we've been working together for all these years at Sony, and you know, I come from a different background too, and more on the game side and in statues as well. So I think we both, together we get a pretty good knowledge on your pipeline and how to execute stuff and pitch ideas and working together all these years, we kind of got used to our pipelines, and so it's a good back and forth.
Hmm.
And that's kind of like today we can talk about both things. I know there's some people, there's that kind of confusion of between like concept art versus character art, and we can together like talk more broadly about both. So you can, if you're still confused, you have to pick something. You can maybe this will help you overall. So
Yeah, because yeah, even though there's overlap between the two, and we work very closely with all the departments, there are kind of specific needs that each of those positions call for. I think we'll probably go into a general description about that, but also the caveat that each studio is kind of looking for their own specifics. But overall, the stuff that we talk about should be applicable for everyone.
yeah. So I guess like this slide, kind of a broad perspective on interview and apply for jobs, and we want to touch on this because it's not just about your work and what do you do and how um, how much time you put on it. It's just more kind of knowing what you're after, a little bit of what the behind the scenes of how you're applying for the job, how people look for people. And like Della said, it's like it varies from studio to studio, but overall you can think about it as the recruiting side of things, and then the crew that works in the project, right? And more than often, like the crew is the one who's going to point out who they want to hire, like who they know, things they're seeing around, going around social media, websites, or whatever. And that's why like usually we talk about like who you know or how you're putting yourself out there, like who do you reach out to. And I always say that like building the connections, like you go after. That's why social media is somewhat important. And if it's not social media, it's like ArtStation or different platforms for you to put your work out there, because then that will create some kind of spark in the future, or you start to make an impact on someone to like get used to your work and see your development throughout the years. And then usually that person will then point you to a recruiter, and then the recruiter will do the interview process, negotiation, all that part, and they facilitate that process. But usually the other way that you have to go about it, it's like applying for a job on a website, and that's a much broader. You get into a huge umbrella of like people who are applying. So unless you are someone who really stands out of the crowd, like it's very rare the crew would actually get to see your work, because often the recruiting is just filtering all that stuff. So before we even go into like the requirements of a position, what we look for, I just want to make that clear, because people often like spend a lot of time. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna get my portfolio ready to apply for a bunch of jobs, and that's usually not you want to go about it. You usually want to get to know the crew, put your stuff out there, build that relationship, so then you kind of have that a foot at the door, if you say.
And I think what Ralph's talking about is really good too, because it's just a way of kind of helping have an own impact on your own career, is being proactive about that stuff. And I remember when I started out, I thought networking was scary to me. Like I wasn't super outgoing. I always thought it had to be like something you saw on TV, people like snoozing and all that stuff. But it's really as simple as doing stuff online with social media, or even going to the conventions in person. Lightbox is a perfect example of that. When we were there in person, everyone was like super outgoing, very friendly, easy to talk to, so you could kind of talk to people. And I know even when students come up to me, or that they might be a little shy asking me questions, and I always try to kind of help and offer advice where I can, get to know them, say what's up. Because it wasn't that long when I was on the other side of that myself, and I knew how tough it was too. So, like Raf's saying, that networking is something, just getting to know people, and you just kind of build that communication as you go, and you can do it in a way that kind of naturally happens, and is kind of really productive and good for yourself.
Yeah. And then the other thing here is concept art versus character art, and that's something that I know that the lines are starting to cross more and more as the tools kind of develop, and the skill set starts to kind of merge a little bit. But you have to be conscious about your decision to go into like the concept art side of things, where you're going to be doing a lot more design, um, quick sketches, quick iterations. Like you have to be a lot more proactive to like the 2D side of things, or we like have a lot of good fundamentals, and Della can talk a lot more about that. Um, and we're going to go into like some of that stuff in the next slides, but you have to be aware of like that's the side where you're going to be designing a lot of things. And then on the character art side, it's a lot more of a technical role, where you're going to be executing on a lot of the tasks. And obviously you need to have a really strong eye for design, interpretation of design, you know reproducing some stuff like reference gathering, like understanding um, design in general. But the technique side, it's a lot more important for this role because you're going to be executing on a lot of the designs that are created by the concept art team. So understanding that difference is important so you can build your portfolio to showcase where you want to go. And not to say that character art don't use 2D, because that's not true, and concept art don't use 3D, because that's not true. That's something like that those lines are starting to merge a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that helps out too. Like there is a lot of overlap, like Raf said, and especially in our studio, we work very close and really trust each other. So even if getting ideas and as the design evolves, making sure we get what the directors all want. Um, but in your portfolio, a great thing, especially if you're starting out, is to have one clear path and direction. And then what we're talking about is kind of making sure you have the clarity here. And as you go through the career, there's a lot of overlap in, mix of the 2D and 3D. But if you're starting out, it helps to have that. So when you're going into the studio, someone can look at it and determine where you want to go. And when they're looking at it from the studio side of where you fit in their pipeline and project, it's very clear for them.
Yeah, and then we see a lot of that too. And like Della said, we're evolving. The pipeline evolves throughout the years because working together closely, those two departments, it makes everything so much easier and faster to execute. So as the studios, like we have a lot of senior artists in our team, but I think the studios are starting to see the benefits of having those departments work closely together. So the
All right.
next go for it.
Yeah, so this is kind of some basic, but we just want to kind of cover it. Is just the idea of just kind of be aware of what you're applying for. Again, it sounds maybe very fundamental and rudimentary, but a few things go into what that is. One is being aware of the company that you're looking at. Each company is looking for their own specific needs for their projects. Um, and then some of those you can easily kind of get a feel, maybe looking at their art of books or work that their artists do. So you can get a feel of the type of work that they're probably looking for and stuff that they will pretty much be responding to. There's always a little room for give and take on that, but you can kind of get in the ballpark of what you're doing. And when they're looking at your portfolios, if you have something that's in line with some of the level of execution that they're used to, and you can kind of gather, it helps kind of keep that door open for you as well. So one, that's just kind of stylistically, and there isn't a style that's better or worse than the other. Like I said, I've worked on things that are like doing like vinyl toy look, animated feature to the AAA kind of very realistic. So when I apply to different studios for that, I just make sure my portfolio is geared towards that type of work. Sometimes I'll bring supplementary stuff in case they do want to look at it, but I make sure going in there's a clear focus on what that is. Then in addition to kind of also being aware of what you're applying for is the roles that the studio is looking for. That can be from a senior, junior, even down to potentially like an intern. Each of those requirements that they're looking for in those positions will have their own expectations um, and requirements that they need. And part of that senior is maybe if they're looking for a long time, it could even be the difference between a full time role or a contract role, and those differences will also be included. So that awareness also helps you as an artist. If it is full time, the studio is going to probably look and see how you fit throughout the duration of the process. And that's from the really creative high end blue sky stage all the way to production where the things have to be on point and you're doing model sheets and turnarounds, working with other departments. And then something maybe if it's on a junior or intern, more area to grow, um, and maybe a little broader set on what you're doing with your artwork. Uh, Something like a contract, they may just be looking for, hey, we just need 3 months of creature designs from an artist, so they can go in and say like, look at a portfolio that's strictly creature stuff. Or maybe if they're looking full time, they also want to see for a character concept like costume design, anatomy, all the other stuff that's included. And again, knowing the difference between those can kind of help the way you gear your portfolio and apply for that. Because I've had things too where I've been turned down for a job and it has nothing to do with the work. It's just not a fit for where the studio is. And I've even been called back like
Yeah.
6 months after I had the interview and say, "Hey, we'd love to bring you on," but I've already had a job. And it wasn't in the back of my head. I could have been like, "Oh, they hated the work. They liked the work. It just wasn't the right time where they were in production."
Mm.
So that's one of those perspectives I didn't have when I was first starting out. And then lastly is the requirements. And that's just every studio will have it, the requirements for each of those positions, like we kind of just talked about. But that gives you a good idea of what they're looking for. And it may sound a little funny, but sometimes people don't look at that stuff. And it's just a good idea of kind of the degree of the artist that they're looking for. And again, it'll be specific to whatever project they're working on. So the needs they're looking for will be dialed into what they are making. So it'll vary from studio to studio, but it's always good to just to go through those and double check that you're in the ballpark with that.
Yeah. And it also, like, the one thing that people don't take in consideration is what outside of the work itself, because some of these more senior positions, even full time versus contract, we look a lot of like personality, team fit, that
Experience.
kind of experience level, like in just not just your department, but like everything else. Have you worked with a combat department? Have you worked with a designer? Have you pitched an idea? How do you present? Like, can you run a meeting? Like that kind of stuff. It's never really talked about, but if you're applying to some of these positions, you have to expect to have that kind of at least being able to talk about it. So just be ready. So because I see a lot of people be like, oh yeah, that guy is a senior because he worked in the industry for all these years, and that's sometimes not the case. Like sometimes you see people who work in the industry for a long time, but they don't really fit on a more senior to a lead position or something like that. So you just have to understand in a more social side of things, there is also evaluated during interviews. So
Yeah, a lot of different considerations that go into each of those positions. So that's why having like a broader awareness of kind of what the expectations are will
yeah.
help you out when you're applying for it.
Yeah, I see a lot of people when they just got hired, and then like a year later, 2 years later, they want a senior role, and they often like they wouldn't get it on the company, but then they would just move to another company and they would give him a senior position just because it's they're trying to get him. So you have to see it on that side as well, like what's happening in the industry. Where do you fit? Like, should you hold off on doing contract work for a year for some time to get into a senior role? Like that kind of stuff happens just because of how competitive it is out there. So
Yeah, and that's what I like about Lightbox and a lot of talks they do is giving a bigger perspective on the industry. There are things that you can look at maybe from a short term gain point of view, and then also maybe the longer term, and see
yep,
which one is kind of a better fit
yep,
for you because there's different considerations that go into that too. So
yep, totally. All right, so let's talk about just the requirements on some of this stuff.
cool. So job requirements. This is kind of general, like we were saying. Like each studio will have their own, but this is kind of a broad set that you can expect to see from any studio as it contains or relates to concept art. Um, so, kind of a core one is just a strong command of fundamental skills. And there's a lot that goes into that: anatomy, color, gesture, costume design, all that kind of stuff. But in a broad sense, what they're looking for when you see something like this is the base fundamentals. And from the studio side, they want to make sure any task they give you, creature, character, props, environments, whatever, that you won't have a problem artistically achieving that. And even from an artistic side, as an artist, you don't want to have an idea that's great, but you don't got the skill set to realize it on paper. You just want to be trained and have that fundamental base. So any idea you have, you can just realize and draw and create. Um, Another one is kind of just having the strong design skills and the ability to kind of get that realistic render. And depending on whatever your look is, that you can execute a concept that looks basically what the director would expect to see in the final version of the game. Because along with designing the individual elements of the game, we also need to set the visual target, working with 3D and all the other departments, so they have a visual target to hit with the work. And that gives a nice metric where we can kind of see that it goes through. And a lot of times that work has been approved by the director, so there's an expectation that what they approved, they're very much hoping to see in game. So again, it just gives you the ability to set that standard of the look of what you're going for. For concepts art, also strong iteration, brainstorming skills are big. A lot of what we do is visual problem solving. Um, it's going through designs, and an example of this is I've gone into a meeting with like 15 designs for a specific character, come out of that, and none of them hit the mark that they're looking for. Not that they were necessarily bad, but it just wasn't fitting what the needs were from the story or the gameplay. So you got to be able to iterate, brainstorm, be flexible, especially on the concept side. It's like, okay, I just did 15, none of them hit. I got to go back to the well, pull the next round out. As soon as we have the next review, I got another set of 10 drawings I can show. And that iteration and brainstorming allows you to just kind of keep continually coming up with ideas and solving problems. It's never really just a one and done or something that I think is good. It needs to really make sure it fits with all the other needs of a design task. So
Also, just real quick there, just to touch on that, it's important to like you can tell when people are in interviews and that doesn't come through, right? It's not so much like even on like the work itself, but like how you pitching your work. Like you would see people just ask like in interviews like, oh, what do you think about this, or what do you think about that? And if you're not able to even talk about your designs and own it and present it, it's kind of like you can kind of tell right there. So it's not even, oh, do you have all this stuff on your portfolio and you can show it all, but you need to be able to speak about it and have more stuff to kind of back it up if you in case you're asked. So that kind of comes through like fairly easy on an interview.
yeah, and that's one thing I actually really enjoy seeing too is just the process and iteration. I know we kind of give the caveat like each company is different. Some companies do prefer just to see the final work, so that's why I said be aware of what they're looking for. But my point of view, especially when I've worked on sci-fi projects or fantasy projects, we're designing a lot of stuff that doesn't exist, so we can't just go to a reference, do that, and design based on that. We got to really use that imagination side. And for me, seeing those thumbnails in the process allows them in the interview also to see how you think, how you troubleshoot, and how you problem solve. So it's a great validation of kind of you talking through that you like to do it, just showing them that you do. Some other stuff is too, just making sure you're good with the 3D packages and the tool sets that are standard in the industry and pipeline. I think everyone kind of gets a good knowledge of that. Communication is also a big thing, being able to talk and whether you're in brainstorming or giving feedback. Communication is something, again, in an interview is a great opportunity for you to show off kind of your ability to do that. And I know, again, sometimes it can be hard. I remember I used to be super nervous, but I always felt like if you had to put me in front of a firing line and I had to talk for an hour to save my life, art would be the one thing I could talk about. And I think that's one thing anyone going into an interview too is like you got the ability to talk about the work that you did, all the decisions you made in the costume designs, the character designs, the environment stuff, and all that. And you're talking to people who also really love doing that too. So typically it's good back and forth, but a nice way to show your kind of communication skills and also your appreciation for and love for what you're doing. And then typically experience will come into it. Um, Depending on whether that's in the form of a degree or working X amount of years on specific titles. Again, that's just kind of just checking that um, your experience is there, that you've gone through the process, that none of this stuff will be new to you. And that's when that experience also kind of comes in, and there's good ways to kind of represent it. And you can even talk in the interview about stories of going through things when things were successful, when things went a little off the track, how you course corrected and were able to do it. And again, since in an interview they don't know you necessarily, they're just looking at your art. This is a way, your first introduction to who you are as an artist and how you handle things. So that's where that kind of comes in and allows you to explain a little bit of that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like a broad set on the concept side on what they're looking for, and it'll be geared a little bit, like we said, to the junior internship, senior kind of roles. But in a broad set, that's a kind of a typical job requirements you can expect to see.
Yeah, the one thing I wanted to touch on the 3 year minimum 3 year requirements, because I know often people laugh at that stuff, is that usually that's almost like a gatekeeping for applications, so you don't get all this stuff, all this random stuff for a position that sometimes is not applicable.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are, if you have all the stuff that we talked about, the minimum 3 years are often like not taken in consideration. This is more of like, we know you're going to be able to speak about past experiences. You have kind of you've been around long enough. And like, that's is more of a senior position, like some of this stuff. So I wouldn't take that as like a, uh, a deal breaker in case you don't have it. Like this is more of a tool for us for it's like a filtering tool. So
Yeah, typically they'll kind of say 3 years or equivalent experience
yeah.
for that reason.
Yep. And then like just real touching real quick on the character art, like we said at the beginning, there's differences, right? Like the concept art will be more on the the beginning stages of like brainstorming, sketching, working with directors, writers, designers, and getting all that information gathered into a visual target. And then the character art would then execute on it. And almost all the time it won't everything wouldn't just be figured out on the viz dev. Like the concept, the character art needs to have a design sense to like execute the work, finish out the details that are missing, work, collaborate with the concept artist, and get it to actually completion, right? So there's a design sense there. But the requirements here, you're going to be able to do. You have to do character modeling, sculpting, UV layout, texturing, painting, material setup, and usually we do that, with just the base softwares, with Maya, Max, or in ZBrush for high res. UVs, you can do whatever you want, but Maya is pretty good. There's UV layout. There's no, like, people ask a lot about softwares, and there's no specific packaging for that. You just as long as you can get the work done, you should be good. Um, like I said, use artistic techniques and process to define and achieve a product's visual style, and that's that collaboration with the concept art and hitting the target from the lead, the director, the senior artist, and all that. Sure, the character assets are the highest quality and uphold integrity of the game design. So you need to be able to at least stand next to the rest of the crew, and that's why we always talk about, like, if you want to work for a company, and it's easy enough that you should just find the work that the artists that are part of that crew is doing and try to match that target. Like, you shouldn't be doing kind of, just, I'm gonna just get a kind of a random question, a random concept, and just do um, this kind of, what the heck's going on? Anyways, just get like a random concept and just try to do it. Like, try to find the style of someone that works in that studio, and then try to match that, because that's going to be an easier target for you to then just try to do random stuff.
Yeah, I think part of that too, Raf, is also one. It's relevant to they can kind of see how you fit in the pipeline and work. Another thing, if you show a lot of work that's maybe different than what the studio is, though a question will arise on their side is the artist happy doing the type of work that we do? It seems like they're passionate about maybe this other style, this other look. And it's not a deal breaker by any means, but then that question comes up in the discussions about it.
Yep. Participate in research and development, and then this is more, you need to kind of love what you do. Like, that's, it kind of goes without saying, and some people sometimes forget about what we're doing art here, and we're doing, working with games and all that stuff, and you basically need to be able to be involved, understand the game industry, how do we, pitch projects, be involved in, like, the beginnings of it, doing research for stuff, like, really kind of get involved and live the thing, right? Serve as a mentor for more junior level artists. This goes for more senior artists, but also we often use people who have that kind of pitch projects, be involved in, like, to have that kind of a uh, who likes to do that stuff to just help other people. And the team itself work as a kind of a big school. Like, if you go get in, and you're gonna learn from other artists, and everybody's helping each other, and that kind of, like, we're always looking for that stuff in interviews, because we know we're gonna get more than just the art. Like, there's more about team play and all that stuff. So
Yeah, there's like the chemistry, and I think that's one thing we try and keep an eye on too, is just making sure that the chemistry between the team works and it's the most productive kind
yeah,
of setup. I know one thing, even with the modeling stuff, as well as the concept stuff that I like to see too. Like when I look at the model work, it's always great for me as a concept artist, and I typically don't see it, but when the 3D model maker will also bring in like the 2D concept they work from, because the nice thing I can also do from there is judge how they're interpreting like the scale, the proportions, all the little pieces in that design. So that's always a plus. Like, you don't always need to bring it, but I think that is one thing you can look and see how the artist transitions that in the eye of them as a designer too. So that's one of the things I like seeing. And then also on the concept side, another thing I don't tend to see a lot, but is extremely helpful, is turnarounds and model sheets. That kind of goes with the experience, but how the pipeline will work, and concept helping make sure that as it goes forward, we're helping on our side as much as we can to the final look as well. It's not just creating the pretty pictures, which is the core of it, but then also making sure whatever that is ends up in game.
so conduct research for reference materials, pushing the overall quality. Like I said, like, being aware of what's going on in the industry, and then keep pushing the work, and then collaborate with other departments such as animation, combat, tech, and make sure everything fits in specs and gameplay. So kind of that, you look through all this stuff, and you have to think, like, how do I show this first on your portfolio, and second, when you go to the interview, keep those in the back of your head so you can talk, speak about that stuff. And even if they don't ask that kind of question, that's just some of the stuff that you want to always try to push through, and then make sure you are fitting, all these specs. You know about specs, about gameplay. You're pushing the quality, looking at other games, like that. That's the stuff that goes nobody talks about it, but you should have that on your back of your head to, show your best self. And that kind of what Della's saying. Like, you always, if someone is putting you in, in front of a, how do you say it? A
Firing
war
squad.
firing squad, like, how do you fucking, make the best out of it, talk about all that stuff. So that's important.
Yeah.
So then more of like on the technical requirement side of things, strong traditional fine art skills, and this is more of like the fundamentals that we talked about. And that, it's not that you need like all these, master studies and anatomy studies, but that stuff goes, you can see very easily when you look at the portfolio, and it's lacking that stuff. So even if you don't have it, you should at least practice it so you're not making that mistake. And we're gonna look at some of your portfolios, like, even if you guys want to post some of your portfolio links in the chat, we're gonna look at some of that stuff, and that usually easy to identify, and so you need to have that base, solid base on that to begin with. 5+ year of experience as a 3D artist. So that one again, it's kind of that filter. And 5 years, honestly, in my opinion, it's not a lot of time in 3D. So it's just more. You just need to have that. Take your step by step. Like I see, a lot of people. Oh, I just graduated. Can I apply for a job or that kind of stuff? Like, it takes time. That's usually like a more of a filter, not for us, but for the whoever's applying as well, to make sure you have your fundamentals, you have your skills, and you're ready to get into the industry. Because once you do, you can burn bridges like very quickly, and you have to make sure you're ready. Because sometimes you get an opportunity and you're not ready, and you're gonna regret it because you're gonna burn that bridge. So ship AAA titles again, same thing. This is more of a filter requirement. Capable of solving a range of complex artistic development issues for both artists as well as other members. So this is more, that Della said, troubleshooting. We do a lot of just visual troubleshooting day by day. Um, knowing how to use Maya, like I said, Photoshop, ZBrush, scratch that mud box, ZBrush, texture creation. Substance good, Mari's good. The basic knowledge of Unreal and Unity is not a requirement. Like, usually Marmoset is enough for you to display your work. Um, so this one is super important. Like, be familiar with video game development, including workflow, tools, lighting, high and low poly. And this is not just the day-to-day work, but like, look at, making offs, talk to other people from other studios and friends, and just, get to know the industry in general. That goes with, everything. What PBR are, that kind of stuff. Desire to strive for greatness and improvement. So this one, again, that it's easy to identify in an interview when you ask the person, like, uh, where do you see yourself in 5 years, or what did you like about this game? Like, that's the stuff that usually you can pick up easily on someone that is going to be a hitter in a few years, and we wanted to have it on our team. So you just try to speak like I said, this doesn't go for everybody. Everybody has this different, you know personalities and goals and that kind of stuff. So whatever is your thing, you make sure you're clear and you're trying to, kind of be your best. And last one, good communication, being organized, super important, super, super, super important. You go to an interview, make sure the stuff is organized, make sure you have everything ready to go. Even if you're not going to show all the stuff that you've done throughout all the years, make sure you have that ready to go. Just be ready. That goes without saying. It's like something that's not talked about enough, and oftentimes people go into interview with us and they're not ready. They don't have all this stuff. Kind of, Della, I remember you showing me your stuff like from years ago, from even when we started, and how the stuff that you showed in the interview, and it was like this
Yeah.
massive,
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, been a lot of online interviews lately, just with COVID and everything. But what I would do is bring work, the portfolio for someone to look at. What I was also aware of is a lot of times you'll get, if it's they're looking at hiring you, they'll run you through the whole team, and the interview can go like a full day, and you're meeting everyone on the team. Sometimes you're in there by yourself, and there's like 3 or 4 people on the other side. So I'd bring them stuff. I could show them the core stuff I was talking about, and then I'd have even like other artwork that the other people in the room could also look at while we're doing that. And if they just wanted also like a kind of a warts and all kind of thing, I could just show them my sketchbook as well. Like, hey, here's the sketches, just how the ideas get generated by themselves. So they could see all of that. And I kind of bring that stuff with me. Like I have the main bulk of what I want to show geared exactly to what the company is. But then I have secondary stuff if they want to kind of take a look at that. And yeah, it went good. It's a lot of work to have, but I think it leaves a really good impression. And it kind of answers a lot of questions for them as well. So. Yeah, and the communication part again, like Raph said, I can't second that enough. Because a lot of what we do in a game studio too is there's a ton of collaboration in what we do. We're not designing in isolation. We're working as a team to do that. So that's another huge thing.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's do some portfolio reviews then, because we
Let's
talked
do
about
this.
this enough.
Yeah.
You guys got the gist of it. You know, it's some people will find a job with less time. Some people will take a little bit more time. Like there's not a specific rule. All we're trying to do here is for kind of set you guys up, like give some tips, like get you guys prepared, and we can look at some stuff.
Cool. Let's take a look.
So I selected. I did a poll or a question on Instagram. A lot of people sent a bunch of stuff. There was hundreds of replies, so we're not going to go through all of them, obviously. But we picked some random ones that we can look at, and you guys can also send stuff here on the chat, and we're gonna go after these ones. We're gonna go through some of the other ones, and we're also questions. You want to do some questions before we do this?
Yeah, if you want to do a couple, and then we can get to the portfolios.
Yeah, let's do some questions. Let's see here, real quick. All right. Hey, do you think CGMA, schoolism, think tank, education counts? So, it definitely counts. Like whatever you do to improve your skills, to work on your portfolio, you know, we don't even look at education or kind of go back into like where do you go to school or what do you, this is more about what do you have on your portfolio and how highly you speak about yourself, like how do you deal in an interview. So yeah, it definitely counts. Everything counts. um, like what type of position can I apply for if I just graduated from university and have no work experience?
Uh, you're looking at entry level, so junior. Depending on where you went to school too. The great thing about going to school, like everyone has what's best for them. Some of them is not going to school. Others are going to school for schoolwork. For me, another nice thing about going to school is a lot of times they have internship programs. So internship is always a great way to try to get in. But you're probably looking at like a junior entry level position, obviously at that level, and just be ready to learn and take it in. My first job, I was like, whatever you need me to design, I'll design. I helped out at working on Star Wars Episode 7, and I had experience, but I'm like, hey man, if you need Star Wars chests, I'm your guy. Like whatever you need, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna do the best at whatever I have. So um, take it and do the best work you can with them, and just really make an impression.
Yeah. As a student, how do we know? That's Juan Manuel asking. As a student, how do we know when we are ready to work on a portfolio piece?
I'd say I think your whole aim while being a student is putting together a portfolio. So hopefully by the time you graduate, you have a portfolio. Now there's going to be degrees of the strength of that portfolio. What I used to do is every year try to change it out, or whatever was my strongest piece one year, make sure everything at least hit that level. So I'm always adding in and evolving and kind of updating my work. But I think to start putting the portfolio together right away as a student, hopefully that's your aim of getting out of there, is to have a portfolio that you can start to show. And
How do
then,
you how do you
um,
manage just like the like studies versus like an actual piece that you want to kind of put it up?
hopefully in a lot of school settings and even the online stuff is they'll give you projects where you're learning, but then your outcome is the project is one piece, so you're learning as you're doing it.
Hmm.
So I think that's a real good way to do it. Or for yourself, if you want to set your own goal, your own expectation, I want to do a character based on whatever. Maybe learn a little bit of 3D combination with Photoshop work as I'm going, but then you still have the outcome at the end, so you can still talk about the entire process you went through. The nice thing again about school, which is a benefit for me and it helped me because I was kind of all over the place, was it just really locked me down with a very straightforward curriculum
Mhm.
that I had to do. And at school, you get dedicated learning time. You've got your classes, and all that stuff. It's a little bit tougher when you're in the industry because we've got our own expectations on the job. With our weekly hours, we got to put on that, so we got to kind of carve that time out a little more thoughtfully. But at school, it's just dedicated learning time. So I think
Yep.
soak it all in like a sponge. Just really do it.
Yep. And I think the same thing applies for 3D. Like even if you do studies that you like practicing or a technique or learning a tool or something, you can always apply that into a project and do like, small kind of, break it down to small studies and then kind of work on a project. At least that's what I've done all these years. Like I'll learn how to do hair in very isolated and then just, put that on the side. I'll learn how to do sculpt an eye isolated, put it on the side and then get to and do like you know, an eyeball with hair together as a project. That's kind of how I dealt with it. All right, next one. Um, is it common for concept artists to create really great designs, but that can create technical problems in this execution? Does it need to be, talk to a 3D artist, technical artists? Yes. So yeah, there's a lot of back and forth when we do like some sketches. We often, the leads will get together and they usually have experience on all the different departments and talk about technical challenges with that. How can we change? And then we do, alterations and kind of go from there. So yeah, it's a lot
Yeah,
of back
I
and
think
forth.
that goes right to like you were saying is just be aware of what game development is, what goes into it, because you can have those conversations because there's stuff that maybe not work, but then you come up with creative problems. Like modeling can help out and rigging, and they can all bring these solutions that help. But going in there with the questions that you
Yeah,
need to ask, it'll help kind of get it through there.
yep, totally. Um, do you guys hire mostly in the USA or do you sometimes hire people from different countries? The studios from all over the place, and it's always been like that. It's been a little bit easier now with because of COVID. That's the one good thing you can take out of it because it's getting easier to hire from outside of the U.S. Um, there's just a couple places that are harder to get, but yeah, the studio has is from all over the place. All right, this is for you, Del. I heard somewhere that big studios usually look for interns in schools. Does that mean that interns are only available to people at schools or from schools?
No, the landscape has been changing with schools, but the a big thing that happens with studios is they need to go to a school that's accredited. So that's part of their setup. So they have to go to those schools. So there's always a conversation of, well, we find someone who's entry level, still kind of at that level. Can we make that offer? And it becomes a conversation. But traditionally, what's happened is the accreditation has to go through the school. So that's why typically you'll see that. And each studio will be different, but
Okay.
overall, it's easier for them to do that through
Yeah.
an accredited school.
And you have to think about like studios often don't spend a lot of time in that process because it's there's a lot going on. So the more we can like kind of streamline that process, the better. And because it's a trusted school, at least we know the programs. Even if the person is very junior, it's just a better deal to do that because you know what you're getting. So, all right, there's a lot of questions, so I'm just gonna skip through some of them. Is there a minimum amount of years work to get a work visa in the USA for mid-level character position? I know getting USA is harder than Canada. Yeah, there's a lot of kind of check marks that you have to go through. Obviously, the minimum amount of years is one of them. How many titles you shipped. It's another one of them. Articles, magazines,
Education.
education. So you kind of go through and like you have to see how where do you fit. I face the issue of being recently graduated and my portfolio is sporadic. I'm also open to multiple work styles, yet less is more for portfolios. How you handle this? Separate sites?
I think the best thing is try and give some consistency across your portfolio. So even some of the ones that we're about to look at, that may be something.
Yeah. We can look at this one just to kind
Sure.
of get out of the way. This is one of the random ones that we got, and it could speak to what you were talking about here. This is John who asked that question, where it is more, there's a little bit of everything. You can kind of see environment stuff, some rendering, some 2D doodles, prop work, some character design, faces, like 3D sculpting. So this is very a classic work like you're describing, where you kind of go into school and you're learning all this different, go to different terms, doing different tools, and it's natural that you're gonna have all this stuff, right? And I think what Della is saying is, yeah, you should now, you get to a point where you have that knowledge, just clean it up, make sure you're organizing that stuff, even through here. Like you don't need all that stuff in here. You might think like, I'm gonna show that you know how to do fur or whatever, but you don't really need to on your art station. This is more, it can come up in an interview or something. You can show it, and just try to have, you know, a few pieces that are more up to quality to the places that you want to work at, and organize it that way.
Yeah, I mean, and I worked on a lot of different IPs that require different stylistic takes. So I've got, like I said, the realistic stuff that I'm probably more known for now, but also stylized stuff as well. I don't necessarily put those all up. If you look at my art station, it's more just the realistic stuff. If I ever went for a job where it was more stylized, kind of in the look, that would be the bulk of my portfolio. Um, just the great thing about school, hopefully, what you get out of that when you graduate is you get to try a million different things in school and see, like, oh, I thought I liked this. I actually like this more. So I think a little bit is it. One, it sounds like you got your love for art. You like all of it, but now kind of really dial in on where you want to go with that and try and just reflect that in your portfolio.
Yep. Yep. Kind of choose what you love, the places you love to work with, the style that you love to do. Because sometimes it's not about places really. It's just more about what do you like to do, and and then you have that down, the style, and then you need to figure out like what is the tool that you want to use, and then start producing with consistency only on that, so you can create a clear message. And we talked about this throughout this whole presentation, like what's the message that you have to clear a clear message of what you are, what are you trying to do, and kind of go from there. So on this portfolio specifically from Envid here, I would clean up a bunch of stuff here, maybe combine all these environment ones into just the one post, and then keep going. Like remove some of these like quick studies. I did think this is important for you, but you don't need that on ArtStation. So it's just more clean up some of the more early stuff. All right, let me see some questions here. Um, yeah, we answered the visa one. Another one about visa. When getting pieces ready for a portfolio, is it better to render in Unreal to show my knowledge, or in Marmoset toolbag to create the best looking image? The both are fine. Both would do the same thing. The knowledge you need to have is with your material setup, the character design, the rendering tool. If it's Marmoset or Unreal, whatever, just do whatever feels best for you. Um, okay, let's go through some of the other portfolios.
Cool.
I don't know. You talk about this one.
All right.
This is from Niraj. I'm sorry if I
Mm-hmm.
not pronounce your name right. Go for it though.
Yeah, I think obviously some good work here. I would say too, maybe one of the things you want to look at again is just consistency across the whole set. It looks, and this is just my take on it, but you also are, I'd say, maybe more of an illustrator than a concept art with some of this stuff. Some really cool line work, and I think you were also doing some coloring in this as well. I think the one thing we probably would look for, instead of just the one-off pieces, like we do work with illustrators where we give them the designs. They don't have to design; they can just go in and execute on the look of it, the lighting, and all that kind of setup. There's more concept iterations on the design and how you arrive at that design. So I think more work as far as the concept stuff would be a nice complement to what you already have here. Like in it, you got a good base set. I think that would be something that helps. And just again, the consistency. It's a lot of good stuff, but I think you got enough here where you could kind of pick and kind of accumulate those ones together as well.
Yeah, I'll completely agree. Your work is awesome. I mean, this is really cool. But it's like Della was saying, if you're looking for more of a production uh, work, you need just like how do you execute on the character design? How do you get there? I remember this piece. This piece was cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's awesome stuff, dude. I
and
think organizing would be cool.
And I think for everyone too, you can look at it as the portfolio in general, and then any for character concept artists too. Other things I'll look for beyond that is just you can really kind of compose a character, getting the main POIs you want the person to look at, kind of the primary, secondary, tertiary, the way the costume works as a whole. So all those kind of elements also play into that.
Yep. And I don't want to intimidate anybody else who's going to look at the portfolio because this is a very strong one. This guy's awesome, but we can always improve on something. So it's good that you said, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and even in that one, dude, I can see in your personal work just that strong kind of style too. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Let's do this one, and I'm not going to try to pronounce your name, but basically this one is I think from a lot of the portfolios that I've seen when people send portfolios, it kind of looks like this, where you have a little bit of a prop work, and then you like try to do faces, and you got to go a little more stylized, and then you try a lot of stuff, which is awesome. And I think you're on the right track here. I think we should always look into and like try to improve fundamentals. You can see you kind of struggling with some of like anatomy on the face and the portrait, and I think that's going to help even when the props like that's fundamentals are going to help. And I can see you starting to study like some anatomy stuff, like that's awesome. So you're probably on the right track there. But definitely kind of double down on like quick studies of anatomy, like do some quick portrait work, try to replicate some portraits from other people. That will help. That stuff will help you to like improving the work on some of the other stuff.
Yeah, I think even on the concept side, Rob, I think someone that has a good understanding of anatomy in general not only helps when you're doing like the realistic human characters, but as soon as you go to some mythical or alien kind of thing, that anatomy understanding transforms, so you get that believability even in those things that don't exist. So I think that's always a core thing
Yep.
too. And then I think anytime, even with the concept, we'll get a lot where it's like a lot of head studies and stuff, which is cool. But we also just need to see the character in full, how you handle the costume design and all that element as well.
Yeah, and then seeing the concept for stuff, right? If you're doing this from a concept, which I think you should, because if you're not, then you're creating almost like a trap for yourself. Or even if it's like from a movie or whatever, like add the movie here so you can compare. If you're not comparing it yourself and looking for what's different and what needs to be improved and all that, then you're doing it wrong. Like you always try to push yourself and like get references, post the references. There's nothing wrong with that. Post the concept art because that's what you should be doing. You should have a board of reference. You should be trying to replicate all this stuff. If you're doing that, there's no way you can fail. And this to me, it's not a real success here. There's a lot of stuff that you can improve and keep pushing. It's kind of like halfway done. So just do that on the future ones.
Yeah, I know whenever we see a portfolio that actually has some of that examples like Raf's talking about, we're always like, oh, this is great. You can see where they took it, where they started, how they executed on what was there. Because you can look at a design that almost has all the elements of a concept, but the proportions, the scale was off, and it feels very different. The nice thing is that just solidifies like, hey, you're developing this artist has a great artistic eye, and their observation is really helping the work.
Like I'm just replying to the chat because I think you can post link on the chat so people can send the portfolio.
But one thing I'd say for everyone too is like take the info and just apply it and have fun with it and keep developing as an artist. So I can show you my drawings from not that long ago, high school, which just no symmetry, no anatomy, nothing's working, But it's just that hard work and effort and love for what you're doing that helps you develop and take the steps to kind of grow as an artist. So just keep doing that. That's the best thing any of us can do.
Yep. All right. Next one, Santiago. So I think this one, it's very well organized. You can kind of see presentation wise, I think is good too. You have like assets and characters, even though you don't have a lot of stuff on the portfolio. Like this is great here, and I think it speaks to a lot of the stuff that we're saying. Like you have this very well done on some of these props. Like you could easily get a job here, as a prop artist or a more junior kind of a junior entry, because these are the type of assets that you're going to be doing if you get a job. Like you're going to be modeling props, and this is like super strong here. You can see, I'm pretty sure if you put the reference, it's going to match very close. Awesome presentation. Like this right here is on point. And to me, even if I don't see a lot of strong character art here, like a full finished like character model, this to me right here is it's what's gonna get you hired. Like this shows UVs, this shows topology, shows the lighting that is probably marmoset. This right here is perfect. Like this is what's gonna get you hired. You can even have like a little real time thing here and Marmer said. And so like if you want to use something as an example, like what's gonna get you hired, this is it right here. As a character artist, entry point, you don't need to have all these like crazy character projects where it's halfway done and it looks bad, but you spend months in this. This is what you're going to try to be doing to get hired. Like this is perfect right here. You're talking about the poly count, the texture sheet. I would love to see the textures. Like that's probably the one thing that's missing here, but this is perfect. So excellent job. Same thing here. You know, a little more stylized. How many studios are doing stylized projects like this and it's gonna need someone that can do this in this quality like this? To me, you should spend on time to get this first before you even go and do crazy projects that you see on some of these other portfolios where it's just not up to quality, but you spend all this time because you want to do something awesome. If you're trying to get higher, this right here is the bread and butter, and it's gonna get you hired.
Yeah, even on that one, I think you said you got the concept by the other artist in there. I don't know if his work is in there, but that'd be also great to see just the concept you're working from.
Yeah, it's not in here, but I mean, this
Yeah,
looks awesome.
yeah, and I like that you gave like the credit to the artist too and working with that. That's cool.
And then you have some of these other ones. Now you're starting to get a little more, you know, more challenging in the work. I think there's some like design, the weirdness on the face here, and the shaders are kind of all this kind of samey. But man, you got the fundamentals are in place. Presentation is good. You know, this is on point. So just keep doing what you're doing. I think you're gonna start seeing some of the things that you're not hitting 100% in some of the future works. But it's more artistic decisions and kind of little things, getting the faces right. Maybe using a concept. If you're not from here, it will help you to get there. A little more personality and proportions are a little off, but you're making progress, man. Like this is a lot better here, so you can see you are improving, and that's important as well. You want to see the progression through the work, like some of these other portfolios where there's like 100 images and you cannot really see the progress. They all kind of look very inconsistent. It's important for people to see the progress as you post some of the new stuff. So
I
you
think that's
try.
something good to do. Also, is just stay in touch with people. Even if you do an interview and it doesn't hit or you get hired right away, stay in touch. Because believe me, it's a big impact when we see a growth in an artist. We're like, oh, they love this, they're growing, um, and with those are the things that we remember.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Um, let's do this one. Hossein. So again, like this one is probably a good example of what I just said. I mean, there's a lot of very um, challenging projects in here. Like some of these things are pretty challenging. They're awesome. Like I mean, in terms of like what they are, like fucking Gladiator, but very challenging. And to me, it hurts sometimes when it's not 100% done correctly. So I almost like take a step back, and don't please don't take this in the wrong way, but it's just more take a step back and do some of the more kind of bread and butter, so you can make sure the fundamentals are there, like do some anatomy stuff and work from concept art. I think it is something that you shouldn't skip. Like just because design can hurt sometimes, the art side of things where you're just trying to get a job, and the design here is definitely not strong enough for your skills, the skills that you have as a character artist. So I think you what you need to do here for your portfolio is just do more of existing design so you can get some really good pieces, because it's kind of like all over the place and the designs are not strong, so it's hurting your portfolio right now. So I'll try to do that now because you can definitely have the skill set, and this stuff is pretty on point.
Yeah, and that's similar to what you'll be doing in the studio too. Like you'll be given the design from concept and then working from that, and then it'd just be great. And then the great thing is you just get to exercise those skills. Like something Raph and I are doing. That's what we do every day. We're just doing it every day, so those muscles and are like nice and big in our brains. But same thing you can do. The more you do it, it just becomes more natural.
Yep. So the same thing for this one, and you guys gonna start seeing it's very like you almost like start repeating yourself because you can find those the things very easily. And so this one like definitely you should be doing like quick studies of just anatomy, Like this is a very challenging to do like a full female anatomy, and there's a lot of wrong things about this. So I'll just break it down. Like do just a study of a leg, just a study of the arm, so you don't skip the steps. I think you're trying to push yourself further ahead than the skill level that you are right now, and doing all these like very challenging projects, which is cool. But you're gonna spend a lot of time on something like this where you could be doing like smaller things, props, like using references, try to copy something like that gun or something, and you're gonna see the steps that you cannot skip those steps to like reference, execution, so you can practice your eye on replicating stuff. So, and then the last one before you jump into some of the chats here, you want to talk about this one though? This one's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like a 3D too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. There's some great stuff here. I mean, this one we can kind of see. I'm pretty sure um, using maybe using a concept for this, maybe not, but this is cool.
Yeah.
You can kind of I could probably tell like you have a good good design, good eye for design. Like this is pretty strong. Execution is pretty good too. Presentation's good. Um, so you're definitely on the right track here. I think you just keep going. You have some
Yeah, I
prop.
mean, this one's nice too because this is also an example of like some stylistic and some realistic stuff. I think one thing you can continue to do, like even the stylized stuff, I think you got a nice little kind of flavor and style too.
Yeah,
One thing that helped me with stylizing, because I worked on multiple projects and all that, but stylizing helped me really define my shapes and my silhouettes. I think continue to kind of bring that in. And the great thing you can do, on your turnarounds, is still just get a little bit of that silhouette, the negative space, and the horns on some of those guys. You look at like Renaissance sculptures, like 360 degrees around. It's always a nice read. And just kind of make sure you kind of keep tweaking and looking at all those elements, and it'll help. And then, like I said, like the shape language I did on my stylized stuff help my realistic stuff get better in the forms and the language that's there. I'd say just keep digging into that stuff, and it'll just keep adding to your skill set.
yep. But great stuff, man. This is pretty strong, and I can see you using concept, and good that you put out the concept as well, so you can actually, you know, compare the work. That's super important because that's the stuff that you're going to be looking at as an interview when we're looking at portfolios. Like, I see this, I see what you did with it, the things that you tweaked to make it better, the things that you maybe tweaked to make it worse. So it's important. It's important. So
Like I said, that's one thing I love, Raph, is just seeing when someone brings that in because you can see how they're interpreting it. Because I think some people can crutch on just looking at a real world reference, and if we're designing something that doesn't exist, then they may struggle harder because it's not a one to one kind of copying of that. So when
yeah,
you see how they interpret all those design elements in a concept, it just puts me at ease. Like, oh, great, they're really understanding that, and they'll be fantastic to kind of work with on the team.
yeah. All right, we just reached the 1 hour on the stream here, so
Okay.
let's do a couple of the chat ones so people
Yeah.
don't get upset. But there's a
Yeah.
lot of them.
No, I mean, I got time as long as
All right,
we're okay.
give me a number then, because I'm just gonna get a random one. One from 1 to 30. Give me a number.
Just 17.
17. All right. God damn it, there's a lot of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. All right. Titan Pecan.
Oh, no.
Oh, this Titan Pecan. Sweet. All right. Oh shit, there's some Kratos in here. What a random, what a random portfolio you picked. Super cool.
I had no idea, Raph, that this was number 17.
Yeah, yeah, I know. You and Titan just you got some Predator too, dude. You just picking my language.
Yeah, Predator, you got Raph. Hook.
You got Predator and Kratos, man. This is dope. I dig it. You notice I didn't open any work until this point, and I just opened this the Predator one. This is cool, man. This excellent stuff. I think the pose could use some love. You can kind of see like it's kind of off balance on some of these other angles, and how you kind of breaking like his pelvis and stuff. But I mean, this is awesome. Very cool. Very hard to execute, man. This props to you. This is good stuff. And you can definitely see like the Predator one. It's kind you know you can kind of see the evolution of some of your work. So it's nice. I think I look at your stuff on the other portfolio review. So you're cheating probably. But yeah, very cool, man. This is I mean your work is on point. I think you just should just keep going. Kratos one, you're like cheating, but awesome stuff. Very cool. Keep going. I'll say like it's probably worth doing like quick sketches of just poses and trying to get the flow and like just not without being too attached to like all these accessories and stuff because I know it's harder to do that with this challenging of a piece. But I think you actually improve a lot if you're just doing anatomy studies of just kind of figurative sculpting and some more just anatomy studies. It will help you in the long run. So yeah, good stuff. All right, let's go 17 more down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 17. All right. Patrick Sade. Cool. Sweet. Some creature designs. Della, you gotta do this.
Hey, go through a few of those. Sorry, I still got the small screen on my side.
Can you see it?
Yeah,
There's a lot of creature stuff. Let me open this robot one.
that's cool.
This is kind of a little more on the concept side, I guess. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of like more, and this is kind of what we talked about in the beginning, like understanding that balance between 2D and 3D, because a lot of this stuff, and I'm kind of like a little bit guilty on that as well, because you can do both, right? And you just have to pick one at some point of like what do you want to do, and this is cool as an illustration, but then it doesn't fit on any of those. If it's more of a production portfolio, it's gonna hurt you in the short term of like getting a job because you're doing some of these stuffs, and I don't know if it's like this is a concept art or is this more of like an actual like
Yeah,
3D product.
yeah, I agree with Rap. Like it's, I think you got some nice stuff. The potential's there for sure. But yeah, it seems like it's kind of like right in the middle. I wouldn't be sure if I saw this portfolio coming in which way you wanted to go. Um,
Yeah,
and then on the modeling stuff, I think man, just the best thing you can do, like your robot has a nice clean silhouette read. The shapes, the hierarchy are good. I'd say just make sure you do that across the rest of your pieces, so like your pieces don't get kind of too noisy, or it's like pulling the eye in like a lot of different areas. Like I think the robot is a good example. Like sometimes even textures get super heavy and noisy, maybe unintentionally. So just kind of keep that eye like it's nice to work on something up close, but then step back and make sure it kind of still has the read that you want.
yep, agreed, man. You're definitely on the right track, man. Just like try to be more clear what you want to do, and kind of go from there. Double down. All right, let's go 17 more down. 1, 2, 3.
Roll the dice.
All right, big Goomy. All right, 2D, perfect.
Cool. Can you click on a few of those just so you could. Sorry,
Yep.
just I got the mini screen.
You just tell me which one you're gonna see, and we go from it.
Overall, some nice stuff. I think. Let me see if. Yeah, I think you got a good base. I think the main thing too, again, is just working the POIs, watch kind of the soft edges and hard edges as well, um, and focus a little bit more on some of the lighting as well. But the things I think that are nice is the way you're handling some of the costuming stuff. Okay, this one's a little more made up. And
Yeah, look, this looks more like a production piece here,
yeah,
like a little commission.
yeah. I mean, I think you got as a junior, it's got some really nice stuff. I think you can kind of just continue to work on that as well.
Yeah, definitely like some of the ones that had a little bit more of the costuming were stronger.
Yeah.
I think it's always part of the process of like reference and make sure you can kind of replicate some of the costuming. When you get too out there too soon, and then you kind of get, and not it's not just you, like anybody who's starting, you can get lost into costuming design, and the simplification is not as strong.
And I think that's something that we run into too. Like we make up a lot of the costume stuff. Like we try and look at real construction and real fashion design and actually like period specific clothing, because one thing we can make it look really good in 2D, but then it really doesn't translate over to 3D, or it will cause a ton of problems in the rigging and all that stuff as well. So I think where you had some of the other characters with the costume stuff look real, I think sometimes we push a little far. Like keep pushing for the fantasy unique elements of it, but then also kind of keep in the back of your head how that stuff works, and we'll move on the body.
Yeah. Yep. This is one of like the strongest one here. And also like there's something that we kind of touched on in the beginning. Like there's a difference even on the concept art, more illustration versus like character design, production work, and you have to be able to do both, but you have to pick the one that you want to kind of do the most. And the studios are going to hire for that. Like it's very rare that you're going to hire someone that's like an illustrator that will do character design or stuff like that. It's
Yeah, I feel like those people are very rare. When you find someone that can do both, that's great, but typically it's not that common.
Yep. Yo, dude, there's like hundreds of chats to review. Oh man, how are we gonna do
Still
this?
got the Red Bull man.
Yeah, I need to grab dinner or something.
Or is there any questions? Maybe just do a couple questions, and maybe we could also maybe sometime another week do some even outside of Lightbox.
Oh hell yeah, we should do another one next week because man, you guys are crazy. All right, I'm gonna pick one more, and then from the bottom here.
I would also say with, is it Reese Kim? It'd also be great. You don't need to put it on ArtStation, but at least have your concept development and kind of the studies you went through to kind of get to the pieces as well. That'd be nice to have kind of supplementary if you go on an interview.
Yep. What the heck? Stop commenting. I need to pick something. It just keeps going up. All right, we're gonna do this one. This 2D. Yep. Oh, this is dope. It's speaking my language. No, I'm not gonna do this one. This is you're cheating. This is
Good
good.
work.
This is pretty good. I'm just gonna say your work is good. Definitely falls into that illustration. You got your style nailed down. You're fine. Just keep doing your thing. All right. I mean, this one is probably not fair too. Like very super strong. This stuff you can see polish level is really good. Kind of getting you need to start getting deeper into just detail and polish level on some of these things. But it's probably like an earlier one that you did. This one, same thing. You get the basic stuff nailed down, but you stopping 80% to where you should be going. You need to be adding like more, kind of tertiary, small details, polish level, not as good. But yeah, I can see your fundamentals are pretty good in terms of presentation, lighting. But you need to be a little more kind of self-critic into like comparing a reference and getting it perfect. Because the task is simple enough that it should be perfect. There's no reason why not to. This one's cool too. I mean, there's just some like artistic choices here that are not as strong for like design and stuff. I like how you're presenting the work. Good stuff. And then this one is the strongest one from your portfolio, which is good, which is the more recent one. Um, Design is pretty good. You're clearly using a concept from someone, um, which is what you want here. You put out the concept. I'm guessing. Yep.
Right on.
Awesome concept. This is a cool one. And that clearly shows everything we've been talking about at this point, right? Like if you have a strong concept, you're gonna get a stronger piece, and you're gonna take away the side of things of making mistakes into designing stuff, as you're learning the tool, as you're learning how to model stuff. So remove that so you can succeed. And this is awesome. I mean, this is pretty good. Presentation is awesome. Texture, UVs, on point. You have a progress shot of sculpting and how you got there. We can close out with this because this is a great example of everything we talked about this far. Um, and we can definitely do another one in the future
Hmm.
and uh, and go from there. All right. Sorry, guys. I know there's a lot of chat. The chat kind of going crazy, and I appreciate that. We've been talking for over an hour here, hour 15, and look at dozen portfolios. So I hope you guys appreciate it. Della, appreciate the time too. I know we've been doing this a lot over the years, and every
Oh yeah,
time
man.
we have the chance to talk about it, I know I learned stuff, and I hope people
Yeah.
appreciate it as well. Um,
No, I
anything
love
else?
seeing the work, man. It's always inspiring just seeing what people are getting up to, man. Like it's Raph and I were both there at one point too, man. We remember what it was. So.
Hell yeah. And every time I do it too, I see better stuff, and hope people are listening, and if it helps one person, this is worth it because I know back then I you learned the hard way.
That's
Cool.
all I learned.
All right, guys. Della, appreciate you, man. Anything
Yeah,
else you
Raph,
want to say?
likewise, man. Good week, dude.
Hell yeah. Lightbox. Hopefully next year, if you guys are in LA or in the US, you can come down and we can meet in person, hang out, or we'll do some online stuff. I don't know. We'll
Yeah,
see.
and we got a couple more days of Lightbox. The concept art awards are tomorrow night, so check those out. See what the who's winning the awards in the industry for the stuff and jobs you like. Check it out, man, because they're setting the bar.
Hell yeah. Thanks to Bobby too for like putting this crazy stuff together and not letting it die with the fucking pandemic.
Yeah, I gotta say, dude, Lightbox Online was like the highlight week last year, man. It's just got the inspiration going back when everything in that world was feeling a little iffy. So,
Yep.
mad love to Bobby and Jim for and their crew for doing this, man. It's epic.
Hell yeah. Hope you guys liked the trailer yesterday. You know how we do.
That's how we do.
That's how we do. All right. All right, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot. See you.
Later, bro.